Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm excited to share something really special with you. Ukrainian Easter sweet bread, also known as Paska. Paska is a traditional Easter bread that families have been making for generations. It's rich, slightly sweet and can be enjoyed in so many ways. Some people enjoy it with savory meats, while others love it as a dessert with a cup of tea or coffee. Today I will be showing you my favorite simple recipe because trust me, there are hundreds of variations and maybe it will become your favorite too. So let's get started. First, let's make the yeast mixture. Take a bowl and add 200 grams of warm milk. To that, add 1 tablespoon of sugar and 40 grams of all-purpose flour. Then sprinkle in 10 grams of dry Easton yeast. Stir everything together until it's well combined. Now cover the bowl and let it rest in a warm place. This recipe really needs warmth and a bit of love. That's the key. Let it rest for 20 to 30 minutes or until you see foam forming on the top. While our yeast mixture is resting, let's prepare the raisins. I'm actually using a mix of raisins and dry cranberries. So take about 110 grams of the mix of raisins and carefully pour boiling water over them. Let them sit for 5 minutes to soften and bring out their natural sweetness. Afterward, drain the water and place the fruit on a paper towel to dry. For the filling, you can also use chocolate chips, dry apricots, or any other dry fruits you like. Actually, you can even make it without any filling, but remember, this bread isn't overly sweet on its own, so adding something gives it a more interesting flavor. Now set the raisins aside and let's return to our dough. Okay, now it's time to add the rest of the ingredients. By now your yeast mixture should have foam on top, which means the yeast is working and we are ready to continue. Add 4 warm eggs. Remember, the dough doesn't like cold ingredients. Next, add 165 grams of sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, 100 grams of softened butter, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and a teaspoon of alcohol like rum. Then zest 1 lemon right into the mix to give it the fresh citrusy aroma. Now mix all the ingredients together until they are well combined. Next, we will start adding the flour. Add sifted flour slowly because you might not need all of it, or you might need a little more. It all depends on the consistency of the dough. We are aiming for a sticky, elastic dough. I ended up using about 530 grams of flour, but keep adding until the dough feels just right. To start, I use a Danish whisk for mixing, and once it's become too hard to mix, I switch to a silicone spatula. This helps prevent the dough from sticking to your hands too much. At the end, you can knead by hand. Don't worry, it might get a little messy, but that's perfectly fine. Your dough should have this consistency. It shouldn't be liquidy, but it should come together and be soft and sticky. Now let's add our raisins and cranberries. I almost forgot to mention, before adding them, toss them in a little bit of flour so they don't sink in the bottom while the dough is proofing. But if you skip that step, no worries, it's not a big deal. I actually forgot to do it myself. So add the dried fruit to the dough and continue kneading for about 5 minutes until the raisins and cranberries are well incorporated. Next, I take a large bowl for proofing and grease it with vegetable oil. Then place the dough into the oiled bowl and lightly oil the top so it doesn't get sticky. Shape the dough into a ball as shown in the video. And cover the bowl. Let it rest in a warm place for about 1.5 to 2 hours, depending on how quickly your dough rises. It should double in size and become nice and puffy. I place my bowl in a lightly preheated oven with a light on, so the dough stays nice and warm. This little extra warmth makes the dough very happy and helps it rise perfectly. Now I'm preparing my molds for baking so they are ready for the next steps. I'm using these panettone molds, but actually for Paska it's better to use thin paper molds. Since I already had this on hand, I'm going with them. I will leave links for good molds in the video description for you. Once your dough has risen and doubled in size, it's time to shape it. Gently remove the dough onto your working surface, and then divide it. For larger molds around 5 to 3.5 inches, divide the dough into 3 equal parts. Each piece will be about 466 grams. Shape each piece into a ball and place it into your paper mold. Repeat the process with the remaining dough. Also, for molds like the one I'm using, it's a good idea to lightly grease them. I didn't do this, so the top layer of the bread came off when I remove it. Once you fill the molds, cover the dough and let it rest for about an hour, or until it has risen to almost the top of the mold. Once your dough has risen, preheat your oven to 340 degrees Fahrenheit without the convection setting. Place the molds in the oven and bake for about 40 to 50 minutes. Keep an eye on them as they can burn easily. If you notice the tops getting too dark, cover them with foil. I wouldn't recommend baking in a small oven like mine as it tends to cook the top too quickly. It's better to use a standard size oven. After baking, take the Paska out of the oven and let it cool in the molds for about 4 hours or longer. I like to cover mine and let it rest overnight to fully cool. The next day, when our Paska is fully cooled, remove the paper molds. You can actually leave it in the molds and enjoy the Paska right away, but since we're going to decorate them, I'm removing the molds first. Now let's prepare the frosting that tastes like marshmallow. Take 3 grams of gelatin and add 10 grams of water. Then set it aside. Next, take a saucepan and add 100 grams of sugar and 30 grams of water. Place it over medium heat and cook until it starts to boil. Once it's boiled, remove it from the heat and pour the mixture into a cold bowl. Add the gelatin and mix until it's well combined. Let it cool for a bit. Now use a mixer and beat the mixture until it becomes white and thick. This usually takes about 5 minutes. And once it's the right consistency, it's ready for decoration. To decorate, you can either dip your Paska directly into the frosting or simply use a spatula to spread it evenly over the top, covering the entire surface. Don't be shy, be generous with the frosting, as it adds a beautiful sweet touch to the bread. Once it's covered, feel free to get creative with your decorations. Paska is often topped with sprinkles, but you can use whatever you like to make it your own. I remember when I was a kid, I used to cut the top off and eat just that part because it's the sweetest. So now let the frosting harden for about an hour and then you can slice it and enjoy. Thanks for joining me today in making this delicious sweet Easter bread. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe for more recipes. And I will see you next time. Bye bye.